people tell you should get backup actors in your head and you should not get married to, whoever you're writing for. But I just was married to it. It just had to be him. And then I think when I finally sent it to him, he saw himself in it. And he's told me that the part is probably the closest he's played to, himself in some ways.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a well-meaning father's life is thrown into disarray in director Hallie Meyers-Shyer's comedic drama, Goodrich. The film tells the story of Andy, whose wife unexpectedly checks herself into rehab, leaving him to take care of their 2 young children. When Grace, his daughter from a first marriage, steps up to help him, she watches him evolve into the father she never had. In addition to Goodrich, Meyers-Shyer's other directorial credit includes the feature film, Home Again. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Meyers-Shyer spoke with director Max Minghella about filming Goodrich. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Hallie, congratulations. It's such a beautiful movie.
Thank you. Thanks for coming
on
a Sunday.
It's an extraordinary thing. I finally got to see the movie last night, and 2 things sort of struck me off the bat. One is it does this sort of rare magical thing, which is that it makes you laugh very quickly and it makes you cry, and that's the thing that I think all filmmakers aspire to, and you do it so elegantly in this film. And the other thing, these aren't questions, these are just compliments. The other thing that struck me is that you wrote this screenplay that is so intricate and nuanced. And then the movie has such an incredible visual style. And it's, I think, quite rare to find a writer-director who is so accomplished at both of these things. And I can't tell which one you're more comfortable with, because you seem very comfortable with both. So I just wanted to say that off the bat.
Thank you.
I know this is your opening weekend.
It is.
How do you feel?
Anxious, but good. I'm happy to be here talking about the movie. I think that feels like getting back to the reason why I made it. And, and I'm a 3rd generation Directors Guild member. So I'm very excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you. So let's go back to the beginning. I think it took 6 years, right, to get this movie together.
Yeah.
Take me back to your first film, Home Again. You release this movie. It's a big deal. It's a big hit. How do you feel coming out of it? What did you want to do next, and how did it lead you here?
Well, I think making your first film is an odd thing. I don't know if you experienced this, but I felt like I was learning a lot as I was going. And when I was casting that movie and building the crew, I really wanted people far more experienced than I, so I could learn from them. So, Dean Cundy, who was our director of photography, has shot movies like Jurassic Park and Back to the Future, very similar films to Home Again. But I was just wanted to be a bit of a sponge while also directing the movie. And genre-wise, it felt something like that I was comfortable with. And on this film, I just wanted to feel a little bit more uncomfortable, I would say. And I learned a lot. And I think it's very hard to make a film without ever editing one, because you learn so much in the editing room about what you'll need and what you didn't need and what you should spend time on and what should be your non-negotiables. So I felt editing that movie, I was like, okay, that was a big realization for me. And then, I kind of feel in all art forms, it's healthy to get like a blueprint and then be able to stray from it. And that movie for me was something what I wanted to do, a really classic film, really classic structure, and hired a lot of people that I could learn that from. Candice Bergen was in that movie and just all these great people. And I was just kind of observing as I went. And then on this movie, I just took more risks. I felt in the writing process and then directing it and with my crew and all of that. And the script, was a way more personal story for me than the last one. So part of writing it kind of poured out of me. It was a very cathartic experience for me.
Yeah, I'm sort of fascinated by that because I wasn't sure when I was watching it if it was a personal film, and then in my sort of Googling of you, I found out that it is close to home, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I should probably lie about that.
Lie about that. No, can you talk about that? And then I don't know what that's like. How do you incorporate, where's the balance between fact and fiction? How do you find that? Is that a fun thing to find?
Yeah. Yes. So my father remarried and had a second set of children, like the film you just saw. And that's only part of it that is similar to me. So the scenarios in the film and the plot of the movie is not my life, but there was a parallel in the emotional, beating heart of this movie is something I had experienced. And I was in college when my dad had these kids, and it was I had complicated feelings towards it, and I sort of felt like I should be okay with it, but it was odd. And seeing him parent was an interesting and weird thing because you don't really see your own parent, and the mistakes I felt he was making or things he was, course correcting and all that kind of stuff. And then I think people have their movies. That's like their set of movies that they hold very dear. And Kramer versus Kramer is one of mine. So I thought kind of what if there was a Kramer versus Kramer type story, but the guy was 70 and it was his second set of kids. And how would that feel for the older set of kids? And then I thought, what if she's pregnant? You just kind of try to build on it to make it basically the worst case scenario for everybody. And I had really been interested in writing something for Michael Keaton, who is having an incredible year. But at the time, I felt he was not used enough in films, and he's one of my favorite actors. And I also hadn't seen him in a comedy in quite some time. So it was kind of those factors that got me to writing Goodrich.
And then, tell us about that. How did you reach out to Michael? Do you know Michael before this?
I didn't know Michael before this. I had met him once, but in no way, did I didn't have his contact information or anything.
I'm always interested in this, is how filmmakers approach actors, especially actors they don't know personally.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So I'd known his agent because I had worked with her on my last film. Two actors, Candice Bergen and Michael Sheen, also were represented by her. So I planted the seed about 6 months before I was ready to send it to him. I called her and I said, I'm writing a film specifically for Michael. And she said, he's, good luck, pretty much. But she was very kind to me, but said he's very selective, as he should be. And I thought, okay. So then I tried to subliminally get him in the movie. Like I would Google him and watch videos of him and try to get his patterns down. And, I think when you have an actor with a body of work like that, you could kind of tell like what he'd do great. I sort of tried to channel him and thought, this is what I see he strays from, doesn't want to do really. And this is what I think he does want to do. And this is what I think he could do more of. And so I was kind of just trying to, reach him in that way. And I wrote to him. Like, that's why, people tell you should get backup actors in your head and you should not get married to, whoever you're writing for. But I just was married to it. It just had to be him. And then I think when I finally sent it to him, he saw himself in it. And he's told me that the part is probably the closest he's played to, himself in some ways.
He's amazing in the movie. What was the process like with the rest of the cast? Because it's a pretty stacked ensemble of amazing people.
Yeah, well, I had the great fortune of working with Avi Kaufman on this movie, who's incredible. And she and I had a good little back and forth kind of, because she casts wonderful things like Succession, and she's more inclined to cast dramatic actors, and I'm more inclined to cast comedic actors. And I felt that kind of push and pull created a really good cast for she and I, because she would pull me in a direction that I needed to be pushed in, and then I would, send her references from John Hughes movies, like the girl at the rehab, Kimberly, who's wonderful. I sent her an image of, I don't know if you remember that actress that John Hughes used to use all the time, who yells at Steve Martin at the train station in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. She's also works in the principal's office in Ferris Bueller. And I was like, I need her, so that was I really, really loved working with Avi. And some of these actors, Mila came about through discussions of who could be on screen with Michael and have that kind of confidence and presence to do the push and pull of a family relationship, which can be often you're at each other's throats and then you're saying, I love you. And, I needed somebody who could really keep up with him. And she's just wonderful.
Yeah, and you had 25 days to shoot this movie, so you need actors who are pretty good.
Casting is everything when you're always, but especially when you're shooting so quickly.
This is a sort of a different kind of casting question, but you worked with Jamie Ramsey on this movie, who's obviously a very exciting cinematographer, and I'm sort of struck from the first shot of this movie by how beautiful it looks, and I was curious about how that collaboration came about, how you worked together. How did that help or affect the schedule?
Yeah, so I had a hard time finding all of the department heads on this movie because I was so specific and I really knew how I wanted it to look and feel. And I think part of working on this movie for 6 years, just myself, I had pulled a million reference images. So I had kind of created this color palette and it was very specific. And I would meet with wonderful DPs, but I just didn't feel necessarily like we were speaking the same language. And like you kind of said earlier, sometimes in comedies or dramedies, people don't think about the visual language of the movie as much. They think it's not as important. But the films that I love that feel like full meals are ones that have that. So Mike Nichols movies and a lot of Woody Allen comedies are shot by the greatest DPs of all time. So it was important to me to find somebody who could give this movie a real visual language, because I thought that would just, of course, only make it better. So our producer, Daniela Taplin-Lundberg, sent me a film that Jamie had done in England. And I saw it had a similar color palette and that kind of, this phrase that I've adopted that I told Jamie a million times, but soft but sharp. And I DM'd him, which is very new age. And I asked if he would meet, and he happened to be coming to LA, and we met and we just got on very well. And he agreed to do the movie. And this was his first movie in the United States. And that process for me was incredible. He was my real partner on this movie. And Jamie likes to get things from a lot of angles, which was incredible in 25 days because he would really fight the battles with me and for me sometimes. And he thinks beyond his role. He came up to me one day and said, I think that little girl's sweater needs to be a different color. And, it really annoys other departments when people do that. And I just was like, yes, of course, change the sweater. Do it. Just anyone who cares beyond their department. So yeah, I would love to not make a movie ever again without Jamie.
It's the highest compliment. And I was researching you today. I was doing lots of sort of YouTube searches. And one thing that all of your actors say about you, all of them, is how prepared you are. And that was something very interesting to me, just like how do you prepare? I think that's a unique thing for every filmmaker. And do you have any tips? Sam Taylor Johnson once told me that she changes her socks at lunchtime, which I've stolen and I think is a very useful tip.
What is the reason?
Just because it refreshes you, makes you feel more energized. There's all this sort of stuff in your socks by lunchtime. So I love that tip. Do you have any other tips like that? And what is your particular sort of style of prep? Are you somebody who storyboards? Do you shot list?
Yeah, so I storyboarded the entire film, which is unusual for a movie in the genre. Usually, you storyboard your action sequences and something like that. But for me, it's a rough pass at the movie. And that is my first order of business for prep, and it's hard to do it on an independent film, especially. And I was told, something else will be sacrificed if you want to spend the money on this. And I just knew I had to do it. It's how I could do my best work. I worked with a really talented storyboard artist named James Zark, and it's your first time thinking about the movie visually, really, taking it from the writing to thinking about film. And we would watch a lot of films, and because I had limited time, I would watch a lot of great, I would look at a lot of Mike Nichols movies and how he staged them, because things would be a wide shot and then camera would move and then suddenly it was a tighter two and then somebody would leave the frame and it was a single and then they'd push in further and it was a close up. And just that kind of, it's like economic, but it's also so beautiful if it's done right, and it's a bit of a dance. So a lot of that was figured out in the storyboards. And why I like to prep like that is because if I know exactly what I need and I've thought about it to a T, then when I get to set, I'm really happy to stray from it. Whoever has an idea, great. If Jamie wants to try something I didn't think about, totally, because then I can check off, okay, I knew I needed that insert and I got it, and now let's have fun with it. But if I didn't do that, I think I'd be more nervous, kind of being loose in some way. So that is, I would say, my biggest part of my prep process. And I start my pre-prep way before official prep. I think most people do. And I'm just pulling, I found that, because it's a group of visual thinkers, pulling images is a big part of my process. I use Pinterest. So I'll have boards for the cinematography, for the wardrobe, for each character, for each house, for each room in the house, so that we can really point to things. And I found that was a great way to communicate with the department heads. And and then Jamie and I got together and we went through the entire movie and shot by shot. And, that's, time with your DP is invaluable. The only thing I didn't get to do is really rehearsal with the actors.
Are you sad about that?
I don't think they were, though. Do actors like to rehearse? I mean, that's more of a question for you, but I'm not sure.
I feel like a fake actor. I don't feel like I can answer that question.
You're terrific.
I don't know. I think it depends on what it is, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually going to lead me to my next question, which is, how do you navigate working with actors who maybe require different, and it's because it goes beyond actors, crew. How do you handle navigating all these different personalities? And especially, say you have a scene of two actors in it who might need to work in different ways.
Yeah.
What's the approach?
That's, I think, for me, I don't know if it's for everybody, it's the most challenging part of directing for me. There's a great Billy Wilder quote that I don't remember, so I will botch it, but it's something along the lines of, to one person, you're a nurse, the other person, you're a flirt, the other person, you're a teacher, essentially it's just that you have to, it's kind of like, that's what's difficult about shooting in 25 days. You sort of start to figure people out and then you're wrapping up, but I think it really takes a certain skill to figure out what each person needs and make them feel seen and heard, but also the person next to them also has to feel seen and heard and has different needs. And, I try my best to, if one actor needs, sometimes people like Keaton doesn't really need a lot of takes. He's fresh off the bat and he goes pretty quickly. And sometimes there was other actors who wanted to warm up and, they would just be getting going. And there's a balance there. I don't know how you really do it, but you kind of, I find you just say encouraging, that was terrific. And maybe we should try it again and maybe you could do that again and try it with this, and just giving thoughts of, I think, ways to keep it interesting for the people who feel done and support to the people who need more time.
And then what is your sort of biggest takeaway from this movie? I know this is very fresh because you've just sort of you just sort of finished.
I haven't taken away yet.
You haven't done it yet. But what is the thing that you think you'll carry with you from this process?
Well, I met a lot of people I would hope to continue to work with. So I think on this film, I really found a team of people. I'm excited to, see what they can do with more time and more money if we're ever allotted that opportunity. But my takeaway really from this is, next, I really didn't want to do something so personal because I felt so attached to this movie. But now that it's come out and I'm seeing audiences respond to the personal element of it, I feel more inclined to put more of myself in my work again.
It's a lovely answer. Do you know what you want to do next?
I do, yeah.
Are we allowed to know anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if it'll ever happen, but it's another thing that, for me, stories come from either my personal life, something I'm seeing in the atmosphere, something I'm reading about, and I think that there's a new type of interesting personality in our culture, which is this kind of Bezos Musk figure kind of person, and I'm interested to sort of go deeper into that kind of person's life.
That's very exciting. That's very exciting. One really dumb question I had when I was watching the movie: does Goodrich mean something?
Yes.
What does it mean?
That's not a dumb question. So I have a hard time writing character names because they always sound like fake people to me, and so I knew I wanted the name of the film to be the family's name. And I knew I wanted it to be something that people called him sometimes as a last name. There are certain people that you refer to them as their last name. So I went onto IMDb and I looked up the credits for It's a Wonderful Life because I was just thinking I wanted some good cinematic juju. And it was written by Francis Goodrich. And that's how the title came.
I love that discovery. That's amazing. When did you wrap?
Oh, geez. We wrapped I want to say it was like April 2023.
April 2023. And then what was your post process? Did you go through a test screening process on this movie?
We didn't have the money for it. So not really. I mean, I remember, we moved really fast and I thought, oh God, I'm going to get some time off, right? And they were like, could you be in on Monday? We ended on a Friday. I went into the cutting room on a Monday. So I got no space from it, which I think is not ideal.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the first cut, which is probably one of the darkest times for a director, is the first cut of your movie, because it's the slowest, unfunniest, and worst version of your film. It's like when you walk into a house that you think you're going to redo and you have to have that vision for it. Like, I think it's going to be this and it's going to be that. So that was rough, but I love the editing process. The part of, I think you just said Sidney Lumet's book. You were just mentioning that. The part of that about editing is called Alone at Last. Mm. And I relate to that. So we did a few, because we aren't, a studio film, we did not get to do a lot of test screenings. And I find that putting your movie in front of an audience is the most important thing you can do, because especially with comedy, you want to say, did they laugh? If they didn't, how can we recut that so that they do laugh? Make sure pace, you want the note you never want to hear is it felt long in this area, that kind of thing. So I put together a lot of screenings myself and I don't, sometimes with friends and family, but a lot of time I would say, I would email my dentist's office and say, anybody that wants to, watch this film, and you want moviegoers to give their opinions as well. So I
couldn't agree more. What were your biggest takeaways from those screenings, especially the dentist office one? Do they have any comments?
What did my
people's
dentist think?
Teeth?
She loved it. Now, I think the biggest takeaway that was an interesting thing for me was a divide between male and female reactions to some things in the movie. Some men felt there's a big scene in the movie where Mila's character really unleashes on her father. And I felt in the focus group, I heard a man around Michael's age say, I think he's not that bad of a dad. And I think she goes too far. And then I saw a girl around my age raise her hand and she was like, I totally disagree. So that was an interesting thing to see and a kind of a discussion I was happy about. Yeah, but
I do think it's a movie that is also rare in the sense that it can connect to so many demographics, right? Yeah. I'm sure it's why you're seeing this incredible audience reaction to the movie. It's a movie that really, I feel like, young and old there's something for everybody.
Yeah.
Did you find in those sort of 6 years you were working on the script, did it evolve a lot in that period of time?
Yeah, it did. Certain scenes, come out really quickly, like that scene. I think I did one draft of that scene with Mila and Michael. I don't know, maybe it was a therapy session for me, but that was so easy to write. And then other scenes I tweaked and tweaked till the day they were shot, So it's really different for me depending on the scene, but I like to have my script completely locked before we start shooting. And I do say to the actors, I'm so open to questions, thoughts, notes, but please try to talk to me about them before we start shooting, because once I start shooting, I'm wearing a different hat. And I don't want to have to, I don't want to make the wrong decision in that moment. And I'm thinking about a million things. And I feel like when I'm alone with the script, I'm making the right decision for the movie. And I don't know that I'll make that during shooting. So it's the one thing I ask of them is, please give me all your thoughts, questions, concerns before.
Yeah. That makes total sense. So you're shooting in Los Angeles. This is a story that involves, I imagine, certain people in your life. This, right? Have they seen the movie? Anybody that sort of is touched upon in this story?
Yes.
And how have they responded?
Do you mean my family?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think it's one of the nice things about my family is full of writers, so they understand and they've done it themselves. I think everybody puts themselves in their work. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't put themselves in their work. Even if you're writing science fiction or you're writing a thriller, there's a piece of you in it. So I found that they were understanding and able to give me notes just as filmmakers and not as anyone reflected in the film, which I really appreciate.
I have to ask about the music. We were just listening to the score.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful score. Tell us about the composer and how you work together.
Yeah, the composer is Christopher Willis. I actually found him on Spotify, which
Really?
I was listening to something, and then when it starts to then go into suggested music. So I listen to a lot of film scores while I'm writing. And I just all the time I'm listening to, I loved the film score for Marriage Story. I listened to that a lot. I like Hans Zimmer scores, and sometimes I'll listen to scores from Lelouch movies, things like that. And it came on, and I thought, this isn't on the playlist, and it was Chris's music, and I just thought it was beautiful, because I think there's something lost in film scores these days where they are kind of just notes that just kind of blend in with the scene a little bit, but they've not added writing into the scene in the way they used to be, or things you could hum. So I thought his music was old school, and I think this movie's kind of old school. So I reached out to him, and he was one of the first people I brought on board 6 years ago, I would say. We met and we talked about it. And the only thing I knew I wanted it to be a piano-based score. But other than that, I credit him with the sound of the movie entirely. And he's a bit of a mad scientist, and I really enjoyed the process with him.
It's beautiful work. You just said the movie was old school. I think there are things that are old-fashioned about it, only in the sense that it's a movie about real people
Right,
having
that's
real
old school
conversations.
nowadays.
But I actually thought the movie was very modern.
Oh, thank you.
I really did. I really thought about that a lot. So I don't think you should misidentify the movie as old-fashioned. I think it's got something very, very contemporary about it, and it's a remarkable film. Thank you so much for making it and for sharing it with all of us, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing
Thank you everyone for coming out.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.